Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be tidying up and customizing this Matchbox Rollermatics WildLife truck. These were produced from 1973 until 1981. I'm pretty sure the truck is based on a Ford F-150. Originally this model had a little lion on the deck and it spinned around as you drove the truck. There was also a clear plastic covering over the rear of the truck. This is another one of those models that seems to be fairly common in a broken condition but quite hard to find in a complete condition. Taking a closer look at our example here off of the turntable, it's seen a fair bit of life. All of the models had this unfortunate red windscreen except for the 81 model, which had an arguably even worse purple windscreen. This one is really badly damaged. The body of the car is missing a lot of its paint. The wheels are pretty shot. And as I mentioned before, it's missing the lion and the clear plastic covering from over the deck. One of the rear wheels still has its little Rollermatic tab on it, and you can see here how the platform sort of pitifully spurts round. It's pretty common of all the Rollermatics, they're kind of laughable really. So the first step is to take the truck apart. There's only one rivet holding this one together and a tab at the rear. I drill out the rivet post and a little bit of a wiggle and it comes apart. There's not a whole lot to this particular model. I'm not going to be using that platform there. It doesn't have an interior, and I'm not going to be using that broken old red windscreen. With it taken apart, I can use some poly stripper to remove all the paint from the body of the truck. It really is a great looking ute. That yellow paint job just does absolutely nothing for it. I now give the casting a tidy up with a wire brush on my rotary tool, removing any oxidation and remaining scraps of paint. You can use the different size of wire brushes that you get in the packs to get into the different areas. Here it is after burnishing. I'm going to be replacing the windscreen, so I'm going to use this old windscreen as a template to make a new one. First of all, I stick a piece of masking tape on it. Now I can use a craft knife to cut out the front windscreen shape. Next I can peel that off and stick it onto a sheet of clear styrene. Now I can cut this out and fit it into the front windscreen of my truck. You might have to trim it a little bit. As you can see here, it's fitting quite nicely. I'm going to leave the masking tape on it until later when I need it. I put my replacement windscreen aside for later, and now I'm going to cut out a little piece of styrene and fix up the rear of the truck here. Once I've got my piece of styrene glued in place, I use some epoxy putty to build it up. And once this was cured, I sanded it down smooth. I drill and tap the rivet post. I screw in this button head screw for later on. The rear door of the truck has a little tab on it here to hold the missing cover on. I'm just going to cut that off and I filler it with a little bit of epoxy putty. Now that I'm happy with the body of the truck, I paint it with a rust texture. This is a base of dark brown primer and then some lighter rust colours speckled over the top of it. I mask off the lower sides of the truck and I use a little bit of liquid mask to paint in some areas where I'd like there to be rust. Apologies for the out of focus footage. Once the liquid mask had dried, the sides of the truck were airbrushed with off-white. Once this had dried, I removed my masking. Unfortunately, there was a couple of areas at the front where the rust peeled off, but that's easy to patch up. Next, the white sides were masked off and some more liquid mask was applied. I want the bonnet and the roof of the truck to have a finer, more worn, rusty effect, so I use some salt chipping to achieve this. I just paint the areas with a little bit of water and I sprinkle on some salt. I'm going to paint the top of the truck in brown, but I want it to be just a little bit metallic, so I'm going to add a little bit of this metal medium. Once I was happy with my brown paint, I spray painted the rest of the truck. Now I can remove the liquid mask, revealing the rust underneath the paint. And the salt on the roof and the bonnet of the car is just brushed off with a dry brush. Once I had finished all the chipping, I then dry brushed on a couple of different coloured rust paints. I also dry brushed on some black paint here and there to give it a grubby appearance. I used a black wash to pin wash the panel lines. I'm going to put a wooden bed in the back of the truck. So I cut out this little piece of basswood. It'll cover over the hole where the turntable would have been. I painted this with some brown and black ink washes that I made. Before the body of the car was painted, I'd also cut out an interior to fit it. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an interior with a bench seat that would fit it properly, but I think this one still looks okay. And I've got this pewter pile of crates and a barrel here that I'm going to put on the back of the truck. I give it an undercoat of white. Then it is airbrushed with a dark brown and then a lighter brown from the top. I then give it a wash and a quick dry brushing. And now for the grubby old base of the car. Looks like there's a little bit of plasticine stuck in the grille there. I begin by popping out the wheels and axles. I'm not going to be using these as they're pretty old and grotty. It's then cleaned up with the wire brush on my rotary tool. Once it was cleaned up, I gave it a base coat of black and then it was painted a light chrome. I mainly painted the front bumper and then just painted the rest of it really lightly. It's then given a black wash and a couple of different tones of rust washes were added while this was still wet. This all dries to give a nice rusty grubby effect. And so here are all the parts of our truck refurbished and repainted and ready to go back together. I've got little replacement wheels there off of another modern Matchbox. You can have a closer look at the crates there. So while I'm popping that back together, let's just take a moment to look back and be reminded of what we started with. A very rough looking old Matchbox WildLife truck. Its lion is long gone. It's got a smashed out windscreen. It's missing plenty of paint. It's got tired old wheels. You might say it's a proper diecast disaster. So let's see how it looks after being customized in the style of an old farm truck. And here it is, our Matchbox WildLife truck converted into a classic old Ford F-150. It's a grubby, rusty old farm truck lugging around some crates. After a cool suggestion from one of my viewers, I've also added an old piece of wood over the broken back windscreen. I really think this two-tone paint job brings out the cool shape of this truck much better. Also, getting rid of the hideous red windscreen and replacing it with a more realistic one makes a massive difference as well. You can let me know what you think in the comments. I'll just take a moment to welcome all of my new subscribers and say a massive thanks to everyone for all of the great comments and likes on my videos. And as always, an extra special super thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help support the channel as well, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe.